Good morning and welcome back to the conference Transforming Higher Education, Digital Skills for a Digital Future. As you may remember, my name is Chris Cartwright and I am the chair of the digital panel at the Institution of Engineering and Technology. Today is the industry day for the conference, looking at what industry is doing to help transform higher education to create more digital skills for a digital future. This conference is brought to you by the Institution of Engineering and Technology, whose aim is to inform, inspire, and influence the global engineering community, supporting technology innovation to meet the needs of society. Today, we'll be hoping to inform, inspire, and influence some of your teaching practices in higher education, or some of those of the education partners you work with. First, we'll be hearing from David Faulkner from Dassault Systems, who will discuss how the adoption of tools engineers use can be harnessed by higher education to revolutionize teaching practices. We'll then have a short break before we hear from Martin Davies from the IET Academy on lessons without classrooms, followed by another short break and rounding off with Lisa Perkins from BT, discussing how work between academia and industry can help nurture the next generation of technologists and engineers. Please do contribute your thoughts through Slido with the hashtag IET Digital Skills. I will be taking questions after every speaker for our live Q&A, and the most popular questions will be asked. So please do vote up your questions as we go through. Questions will be refreshed between speakers, so please do not be disappointed if your question is not answered. However, if you still want answers, please feel free to contact sep@theiet.org, who will find an appropriate member of staff to respond. Before I move on to our first speaker, please be aware that yesterday was our Academia Day and is now available for instant playback. With no further delay, I wish to thank you for attending and hope you enjoyed the presentations. I would first like to welcome David Faulkner from Dassault Systems. David will be talking about the 3D experience, education in the age of experience. He will talk about the adaptation of tools engineers use to meet expectations of consumers. He will demonstrate how this experience can be harnessed by higher education and how the software can be used to revolutionize teaching practices. Please remember to ask your questions on Slido using the hashtag IET Digital Skills and vote up your favorite questions. I will be asking several of them directly to David at the end of his presentation. Thank you, and over to David.
Hello everyone, I'm Dave Faulkner. I'm the education leader for Dassault Systems in Northern Europe. And I'm going to be speaking today about teaching in the age of experience, which is how we are using our technology, the 3D experience platform, to provide digital tools to teachers around the world for their various teaching activities in predominantly in engineering and other STEM subjects. Some of you may well have heard of Dassault Systèmes as a company, or you might be familiar with some of the software that we develop, such as CATIA or SolidWorks for computer-aided design, or Abacus for simulation. But for those of you who aren't familiar, just as a quick introduction to Dassault Systèmes as the company, we're very much a purpose-driven scientific company. The core of that is through the software development that I've mentioned, but we are involved in various different industries, lots of different activities that we do that's all based around this core of the software and the tools we develop. Currently about 20,000 people spread around the world, and a network as well of over 12,500 partner companies who are working with us for software development and distribution, service provision as well. And we service about 270,000 customers, and this is companies and universities, schools and colleges around the world. And this is across various different industries through various different products and software tools. And one of those in particular, which I'm going to focus on when we talk about digital tools for teaching, is this 3D experience platform. So the core of everything that Dassault Systèmes do, very much the core of it is our belief that virtual worlds extend and improve the real world. And this can be through the design of products or vehicles. It can be through the simulation of real world physical events and virtually prototyping to see what's going to happen. Almost a dress rehearsal of real world events before committing to real world experimentation. So you'll hear the phrases digital twin, virtual twin used a lot for the kind of technology that we're developing. And this has taken form through various different stages of the Dassault Systèmes legacy throughout the years. So the company first started in the early 80s and was started as a business developing the early iteration of our then flagship product CATIA, which was used for computer-aided design, looking at modeling the surfaces of various products, geometries, vehicles, in order to move on from what would have been traditional drafting techniques used by designers and engineers at the time. And since then, roughly every decade, there's been an evolution of our business, and we've moved into the next stage of our legacy. So in the late 80s, we moved into digital mock-up, which moved beyond just designing those surfaces and looked at the virtual construction of these vehicles. So that could be showcased by companies such as Boeing, who were designing entire aircraft virtually using our technology. We then moved in the 90s, the late 90s, into the world of PLM, which is product lifecycle management. And this moved again beyond what companies were starting to do with the design of their vehicles and their products, and moved into looking at the entire life cycle of that, from the initial idea through to the design, through to testing, simulating, and then into service and end of life of those products, and shown by companies such as Toyota, who would be using that kind of technology. And then in 2012, we moved on to the next step, which is the launch of the 3D Experience platform. And this continued along that trend of product lifecycle management tools, but expanded that to an entire ecosystem of a business. So much more became possible when we moved into this era. And a real showcase of what that allowed is shown by the image here, which is a city that's been modeled. And an example of that would be the city of Singapore, who have used our 3D Experience platform to create an entire virtual twin of that city. And they can use that to test before they build new structures, before they change road planning. They can look at physical effects of wind flow through the city, but also they can manage the whole project entirely within this platform. So it really opens up a lot of new possibilities, which wouldn't have been possible with what we now call traditional PLM. And we're actually now just going into the start of the next phase of our evolution, where we're moving, not moving away, but we're starting to include, alongside those traditional engineering disciplines that we're more usually associated with, we're moving into life sciences a lot more. And this has been represented a lot by a major acquisition that was made last year when Dassault Systèmes acquired a company called Medidata, who are involved in clinical trial technology and software. And we also have a variety of other projects going with our simulation tools that look at, for example, simulating a human heart. And we're looking really at moving those technologies that have been used in the past for designing and testing vehicles and products to testing parts of the human body. And we really believe that we can make a digital twin that opens up lots of new possibilities in this way. So you can diagnose issues without having to have any kind of invasive operations, and you can test different treatments before actually having to go into physical operations. So it's a really exciting time for us as a business at the moment, and we're really growing in the scope of what we can do, and we're seeing lots of big advances in lots of interesting areas away from what we have been associated with in the past. And alongside this, we've always had a really close link to education, and we've also just launched a new part of our business called 3D Experience EDU, where we're looking not just at how we can provide universities with tools for teaching their students, but also for younger learners to get started with learning about this kind of technology through apps for kids, where they can do some simple computer-aided design and play with some fun ideas and create some nice scenes and shapes, through to professional education as well, for people who are having to continuously learn. And we see that lots of people's roles are changing. Lots of people are having to reskill, upskill, and professional education is becoming more and more important. So we're very much involved in that as well. And this is all encapsulated in what we do as the EDU team at Dassault Systèmes. And we have a quite significant impact already in how we are involved in this. So just some statistics on what we do with education. Currently, we have about 50,000 academic institutions around the world. That's schools, colleges, universities who are using our software to some extent in their teaching or their research activity. That amounts to about 5 million students per year who are using Dassault Systèmes technology. And we do this through a variety of different ways. And I'll go into some examples of how schools are making use of this new cutting edge technology in just a moment. And some of the examples we have of ways that we are working with schools is through our EDU hub, which is based in our headquarters in Paris, where we work alongside universities to develop these projects, all based around different technologies that are linked to Industry 4.0 or the fourth industrial revolution, and use our platform, the 3D Experience, to achieve the results of the projects that you see here. So all around things like additive manufacturing, virtual twins or digital twins, cobotics, where we have robotics working alongside humans, composites and other novel materials, smart buildings and smart cities, building on that concept even further. And I'll go into a particular case study of one of these examples in just a moment to show you the kind of things that can be achieved when this kind of technology is used in a teaching context. But firstly, what is this 3D experience platform that we're talking about and that we are providing to universities for their teaching? So, as I touched on earlier, it builds on these product lifecycle management concepts, but goes a bit further, and it incorporates a lot of the tools that Dassault Systèmes provides. So we have, and they're represented by these 4 different quadrants of our compass icon here. So we have 3D modeling tools for that computer-aided design. We have simulation tools using finite element analysis and other methods to represent what would happen in the real world under various different physical phenomena such as stress, strain, and fluid flow, electromagnetics. We have information and intelligence for the management of vast amounts of data that we all rely on and use these days, and social and collaborative applications as well, because where we work with universities and indeed with companies, it's not just about those hard skills of designing and simulating, but also it's important for students to have those soft skills and being able to work as a team, and also be used to working with a diverse team as well. And these are the tools that really allow them to do that. So it's all incorporated within this one platform. And you see here some of the brands that maybe some of you in the audience may be more familiar with, that fall within this platform now. And there's also the 11 industries that we service through this platform. Traditionally, if you're familiar with us as a business, you may associate us with aerospace and defense or transport and mobility, but you'll see there's the life sciences that we're covering now, high tech, construction and cities, even home and lifestyle and business services. So industries that you wouldn't think this technology would usually be associated to is where we're really seeing a great impact at the moment. And in terms of education, and in terms of how we provide these digital tools to help universities, and this is something which has become increasingly important over the last few years, but very rapidly this year with the obvious challenges that have come about through COVID-19 and the closure of campuses. We all know that universities were physically closing their doors this year, but weren't stopping their activity by any means and needed to continue working. So these digital tools became hugely important. But we have here a quotation from one of our academic users who explained that the seamless digital engineering processes combined with cyber physical production systems made possible thanks to the app and cloud-based tools of the 3D experience platform for academia offer huge potential in education and research. Students learn all about the strengths of integrated data management, cross-functional collaboration, and innovative digital and virtual factory capabilities for developing hybrid work systems and managing smart products based on highly diverse customer requirements and self-steering production systems. So it's quite a mouthful, and it gives you an idea of the things that are opened up by using this software in a teaching environment. And whilst the 3D experience platform really was developed as a tool for industry with companies in mind, we have adapted it to be, and it's fully adaptable to the users as well, but we have a framework that's available that we call the ILIS framework, which really lends itself being used for school projects or any university teaching application usually, where you essentially will have 5 different tabs that you would work through on a project that correspond to these letters that spell out ILIS. So firstly, you would inspire students. You have one tab which has perhaps some videos, some articles embedded in there. It's a fully customizable dashboard where you can show them what's possible in whatever domain they're working in, and start their minds thinking and coming up with ideas of what they could possibly do as a project. Then you have another tab for Learn, where you can embed specific prerequisite material, learning content that they need to complete before starting the project. A tab for Innovate, which is where we have those social and collaborative tools where they can put forward ideas. It operates very much like a social media platform that most of us will be familiar with, where they can post a comment, a question, an idea, share an article. People can then interact with that. They can vote for which one they think is one to take forwards. And then they move on to Create, where they have access to those cutting edge tools for computer-aided design, for simulation. They can really come up with the solution to whatever problem they're working on in this, for whatever the department, whatever course they're studying for. And then there's a tab for Evaluate, where they can submit their final results, and a teacher, lecturer can go through them and see who has contributed what to a project, and see exactly what's been done, what steps have been taken, and the end result of all of that. And it's very much lends itself to a project-based learning approach, or PJBL or PBL sometimes. And we also, alongside that, provide lots of training content, learning content alongside the actual software. So we have a library of training courses that we make available to all of our educational users, where you can find thousands of hours of courses to complete in different subjects. So you can pick whichever one is of interest to you at that time and complete that. We also have a fairly unique platform which operates similar to a MOOC, massive online open course library, where we have organized course material that's not only been developed by us at Dassault Systèmes, but also by a network of lecturers around the world. And they all combine together to fit into these stories that we've created. So one example would be the story of the design of a car. And most students, when you're studying in this area, you won't be interested in every aspect that goes into the design of a car, from the initial ideas through the aesthetic design, as well as fluid flow and aerodynamics. You would have particular areas you're interested in, so you can choose which path you follow through that project. And if you want to dip into the other areas and see what they're about, you're free to do so. And we have this is a way that we can use our network of lecturers around the world to contribute this, because as well as no student wanting to go through every stage of a car design and development, there's no lecturer that will be able to provide all that content. So we can really use that the community that we have around that, and it's a great source of learning material for the universities and schools that we work with. And as I mentioned, COVID-19 as everyone knows, has had a huge impact on everything, including education this year. So a big focus of what we've done this year has been around providing these digital tools to universities and various educational institutes. We were already seeing a bit of a transition to a more remote teaching methods or blended learning before the pandemic, but once it hit and once lockdown came into effect and campuses were forced to close and students to stay away, we really had to act fast to make sure that our partners could continue teaching. The good news for us was that those that were already using our 3D Experience platform, which is hosted over the cloud, were able to, I wouldn't say seamlessly continue their work, but they weren't as impacted as others who would be relying on traditional software, which would be usually installed on desktop computers on the campus, or will require individual licenses for whichever machine it's installed on. So we acted quite fast to provide lots of universities with access to the 3D Experience free of charge back when the pandemic first started, as part of our response and to show our willingness to really be helping educators go through the very tough situation that they were facing. We also ran a series of webinars for them as well to help them get up and running, because it's there is a bit of a learning curve of getting started with it. So we made sure that they were well equipped to deal with that. And we also launched competitions. We had planned to have a hackathon style competition using our tools this year, with groups meeting and working together over the course of a couple of days. But with that being impossible, we quickly adapted that plan and had a web-based equivalent, which is just concluded, and we've seen some great results of that. It's provided great experience to students when they've had a very tough time themselves trying to continue their education. But I want to talk about a specific example, a specific case study of how our digital tools have allowed some universities to really revolutionize the way that they're teaching. And this example I'm going to talk about is the Factory Futures project, which is organized out of the engineering school in Metz, but is part of a collaboration at last count between 11 different universities, although the number does change each year with this project as it goes on. And the way that I like to describe this project is to ask you to think back to those of you who've studied technical physical science or engineering degrees might be familiar with this, or those of you who are maybe planning to go into that route will have an idea of what to expect. Usually, if your experience was like mine, you'd have the initial lessons. This is after you have your introductions to everyone on your course. Back when I studied university was back when the only thing we had to worry about back then was freshers flu, so it's definitely simpler times. But you then, after that, you'd have your engineering 101 or maths 101, structural mechanics 101. It would be those introductory courses that make sure everyone's up to the same level, got that same fundamental level of knowledge, and is ready to go on to the more advanced stuff later on. Then maybe later in the year, you might have a small group project with a few of your peers from your class that you'd work with, and then maybe you have an exam at the end of that year to test how much of that you can remember. This project throws that whole concept out the window and goes at it with a whole different approach, and this is very much that project-based learning, but taken to a high level. So students who are on this course are arriving for their first week of university, and their lecturer is saying to them, rather than let's ease you in and start off with some nice, simple, fundamental courses, they're saying, first thing we're going to do is we're going to work on designing a aerospace factory for constructing aircraft using Industry 4.0 technology, such as additive manufacturing, cobotics, robotics. Not only are you going to be doing this with some of your peers in the same class as you, but you need to make sure that you're going to be working with teams from other universities, in fact, from other countries. So they're not even in the same university as you, and they're going to be working on different parts of the project to what you're working on. You, for example, might be working on the mechanical design, whilst they're going to be designing the ergonomics and the maintenance. Someone else will look at the actual factory layout. And you need to communicate, even though you don't all have the same first language, and you're all in different time zones as well, which adds another, for students, that challenge perhaps isn't as exaggerated, because we find that a lot of the students are doing their work at 2 in the morning and waking up at midday anyway, so the time zone thing doesn't always play out as being as big a challenge. But there are obstacles there that you wouldn't usually have in a university project, and this really helps to bridge the gap of what we see when we work with our clients in industry. We're always talking to them about their needs around workforce of the future, and concerns that they often have are that, and this is something which may be familiar to a lot of us, is that they look to hire graduates and complain that they hire people with 2-1s, firsts in their degrees, and they say they're not ready to work. They've got great technical knowledge, they remember a lot of stuff they learned on their course, but they don't know how to work effectively in a team or to communicate effectively. And then at the other side of it, as a graduate, when you're looking for your first career job out of university, it's a shared challenge that lots of people have gone through, including myself, where you look through all these job adverts and they're entry-level roles, looking for a graduate engineer. First bullet point on the advert is always 2 years experience, because they're looking for people with that who are able to work in that way. And this kind of project really solves that problem. It gives you that working experience whilst you're studying for your degree. And not only are they learning to use the latest computer-aided design tools and the latest simulation technology, but they're learning to work very effectively as an international team before they even get out of university. And you can see a snapshot here of what's been achieved with that. And some of the things you see from this particular project go far beyond what I would usually expect to see from, especially from first year, second year student projects. And they really benefit from having this exposure to these new ways of working. And the feedback we get from them is always that they appreciate the fact that they've got that industry standard tool to use, but the fact that they can do this, especially these days, from wherever they are in the world, fully distributed, get that experience of working with a diverse team, the students really do feel well equipped to go into their careers afterwards. They're career ready once they finish this. So it's a great example of what can be done with this kind of technology. It's probably the grandest example of project-based learning. It certainly goes beyond how most of our customers in universities are using the tools. Usually it would be within a department, within a particular cohort of students, but it shows you what's possible. We have smaller scale ones like this as well, where there's perhaps 2 universities would be collaborating on a project, or there's a company who are collaborating with a university for internships or just setting projects. And when they're both on the 3D Experience platform, it allows them to do this. So if you're interested in seeing more about this project in particular and other examples, then I'd encourage you to take a look at some further content that we have, either through our main company website, which is 3ds.com, or we have a dedicated space for education, which is the EDU website. And for students as well, we're actually currently offering free access to the 3D experience as a part of a back to school promotion that we're doing. So if you want to try it out for yourself and test it, then please do follow the link here, or follow that or search on your browser for the 3D Experience Back to School offer. And happy to be contacted if there's any questions or anything else that you'd like to discuss about this topic afterwards, and happy to answer some questions for you now.
Thanks, Dave. Fascinating descriptions there, and amazing to see how some of these platforms have evolved over the past few years. So got lots of different questions for you here. We'll start with this one. What do universities think of the tools you're using? What's the feedback?
That's an interesting question, and as you can imagine, we've got quite a lot of users spread across different universities, different countries. So feedback, to give a general overview of what the feedback is that it's been positive. With the 3D Experience platform, when universities use it, usually isn't just them upgrading to the latest software, the latest tool. They quite often are also changing the way they teach when they start using it. They're moving from a kind of traditional lecture-based teaching into project-based learning, and they're trying to emulate industrial projects. So it's a big change for them, and it's a very challenging time. We are not going to pretend we don't see some teething issues as they get used to a new way of working and a new software to use, but we provide support where we can to guide them through that. And once they are through that initial learning process and up and running, you can see some of the results from the testimonials we get from universities and the videos that we can share on our website of how universities are using it, and they really find that it does improve the engagement from their students and what they're able to achieve. So feedback overall is positive.
Great. Okay. And question here on the IP as well. So who owns the IP to these concepts?
So I think this question was linked to the slide with the projects that we've developed in conjunction with various universities around the world from our learning lab. So those projects and any work that's done on our platform, we we own the IP that's for the software itself and for the platform, but anything that you do with it and you create, including course material, of course, is owned by the institution that's done that. So if a company is designing a product or a vehicle or anything like that on the 3D experience, they of course own their IP that's done on that. Same for developing courses and course material, even where we've worked in conjunction with the university. Those universities you've seen mentioned on that slide are the ones that would own that IP for that particular project.
Okay, thank you. And how do you choose software development and distribution partners?
That's a good question. It's probably one that we could talk in quite a lot of depth about, but I won't drill into too much detail, not just for the purpose of saving time, but also because I personally don't have too much familiarity with that whole process. But there is as you can probably expect, quite a rigorous process that goes behind all of that. Managed from our various different labs around the world that are doing our R&D activities. So, and there's different industries, different types of software that we're working with. So there's some variation in the processes for all of that. So, I mean, if someone's very interested in a particular aspect of it, then feel free to get in touch and ask us about it. But yeah, it's quite a varied and complex topic. Yeah, as I say, there'll be variation for different areas of the business and different locations as well. So yeah, but there's a complex process.
Okay, all right. And I mean, in terms of the usage of the platform, then there's a question here around: do you know roughly how many students work at night? Do these students get better or worse grades overall?
It's an interesting question, and I think this must have come in. I made that remark about students that are working during the nights when they're on the Factory Futures project and trying to work with people in other time zones. They don't have the same experience that typical professionals might have when they're working their 9 to 5 because they're not set to those hours. I mean, it is possible for a university that are using the 3D experience to monitor the activity, if they want to, on the platform, and see who's been uploading updates and posting comments. It'll be logged what time it's been done, so they can see that if they want. I mean, we're not in a position to give any insight into on a sort of global level what percentage of students do their work at what time. I'm just commenting based off anecdotal and personal experience, and I couldn't tell you if they get better or worse grades on average. And it's not really my subject, but I imagine there's some personal variation in that as well. People's energy levels and efficiency is different at different times a day, so it works for some people, won't work for others. But it's just something which, as I say, anecdotally and from personal experience, I know that students don't stick to the 9 to 5 hours.
Interesting, though, that you've potentially got a platform where you can actually measure that, though, which I suppose is different to the old world, isn't it?
Yeah, and I don't want it to sound like students are going to be spied on by their professors and checking to make sure that they're submitting on time and doing their work at the right time. But there is a certain level of control that a lecturer could have when it comes to seeing the work that's being done in real time. They don't have to necessarily set deadlines for when this part of the project has to be submitted by, and then this part, and they'll only see the results at those defined moments. At any time they want to check the progress of a project, they can log in, depending on how they've set up their dashboard and their project, and they can see what the progress level is, who's been contributing, what different areas of the project, and they can intervene where they like and offer advice and guidance to students based on what they can see at any moment when they want to check.
Okay, so just one more on the usage of the platform, and then we'll talk a bit more about industry, links to the industry and things. So the 3D experience looks like a very complex platform. Does that make it challenging for universities to use for teaching?
Yeah, I mean, I would say rather than describing it as complex, I would call it sophisticated, I think. There's certainly a lot in there. There's lots of different features, different apps and tools. And as I say, for a lot of universities we work with, it represents a new way of structuring their work and they're teaching. So yeah, there's lots of challenges for that, and there is a learning curve that has to be overcome to really start seeing the results of that. I think in terms of how effectively universities get up and running and using the platform and delivering those improvements varies from institution to institution. But yeah, we acknowledge that, and actually when we work with new universities with the 3D Experience platform, that quite often is one of the biggest obstacles we have to overcome, is that concern about the sort of activation energy of getting over the initial learning curve and being able to then be productive with the platform. So we recognize that definitely, and we offer some form of support where we can. We have extensive training material, we run webinars, we have online courses they can follow as well to make sure they get over that hump as quickly as possible and can start really using the platform to its full extent.
Okay, so yeah, just talking a bit more about links with industry then. So there's one here, how do you help foster partnerships between industry and academia?
That's a really good question, and it's it's quite key to what we do as a business when we work with universities, because more and more over the recent years we've seen that there's always an increase in how closely universities are working with the industry. And we of course are very active in industry, in various different industries, 11 different industries. We're very active, and we a lot of the time we speak to our commercial customers, and one of the concerns that they quite often have is if they want to move on to the latest technology with the 3D Experience platform, they want to know that they can have a stream of graduates that will be coming into the job market, into industry, that they can hire, that will be able to use that, be familiar with not just using the tools, but with that way of working. So they come to us with that concern, and we one of the ways that we address that is by making sure that we have this active program of universities. And if there's a particular company who are flagging that up as a concern to us, we can speak to them about what universities they typically, sort of departments they typically hire from. We can open up dialogues with those universities, help them to get on board with the platform if it's of interest to them. And there's also a research part of that as well. There's lots of collaborative research happening between universities and industry, and we're often involved in that as well as a software partner, having that kind of relationship with the university and the industry partner at the same time. So there's lots of different ways that we do this, and it's something which is a big part of our activity and our strategy around our sort of education and academic program.
Okay, and what sort of client usually buys this software?
So I've tried to address this a bit in the presentation, but it's quite a big topic. As I mentioned just then, there's 11 different industries that we, as we separate them, that we've identified that we serve with our software. Traditionally, we've always been associated with the aerospace and the automotive sectors, which certainly are a big part of our user base for our CAD tools like CATIA and SolidWorks, and simulation for Smoothler and Abacus, and then consequently the 3D Experience platform. But yeah, as well, we're seeing a huge growth in use in life sciences. We also see it used in marine and offshore, in energy. It's used in financial services as well, and in fast-moving consumer goods. There's a lot of, it's a broad scope of how it's used. A lot of it comes from that history in the automotive and aerospace sectors that have kind of grown into other sectors from there. So it's a long list of industries and companies that are using our software, but hopefully that's a good overview for you. I hope that's answered the question.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Just moving on to the safety side of things. So the question here, so for Industry 4.0, do you take account of functional safety requirements? So how do you do safety in the virtual world?
So I'm assuming that this question may have come, perhaps it's hard to sort of guess which specifically what this question is referring to, but I think possibly it's referring to things like cobotics and ergonomics within a kind of factory setting. I think that's probably where we, and also with vehicle usage, I guess there's a few different areas where safety would come into it. So on a technical level, there is a way to factor in the human element to the work that you're doing. If you're designing to take an example, if you're designing a vehicle or even a vehicle manufacturing plant, you have your layout simulated as a virtual twin, a digital twin, and you can incorporate humans into that and look at the ergonomics, and measure the safety and things from that. So there's lots of ways that's done on the software level, on a technical level. It varies a lot dependent on the actual usage and what you're designing, but yeah, it's certainly a factor that's considered.
Okay, all right, thanks.
I hope I've understood that one right, but I'm sure they can let us know if not.
No, I think you've understood that right. That's how I interpreted it anyway. And just final question for you then. The question is, how was the COVID-19 experience for you? So maybe you can just talk a bit about how did the pandemic impact what it is you're doing? Was there an uptake in usage? Talk us through your experience.
Well, it was, as for a lot of people, it was certainly a very challenging time, interesting time. I mean, for me, in my role with the business, working with universities mostly, there was at the time when we first saw the pandemic spreading into Europe, which is where I'm based and where I'm covering, there was oh, sorry, I think, am I losing connectivity here? Sorry, I just had a warning. Okay, sorry about that, technical glitch. So it was certainly a very challenging time. Lots of universities who traditionally would use our software installed in their computer labs were suddenly not able to have students on campus, but still wanted them to be able to work on their projects and progress in their learning. So we very quickly had to try and get an offer together where we could give them cloud access as much as possible, and we responded as quickly as we could to make sure that we made that available. Which for us to do that quickly and free of charge was a big challenge internally, but we managed to do that and get it out to the students who needed it. And as a result, as things kind of settled into this, I know it's a phrase a lot of people have grown to hate, but as we settled into the new normal and people got used to this way of working, we started to see a bit of an increase in demand, because there was a way, the 3D experience platform, especially when it's used on cloud, as it mostly is in a teaching context, allows a way for students to work together on projects when they're not in the same place physically, when they're distributed, working from their bedrooms around the country, around the world. So that aspect of it was of great interest to universities that had been working in a very, what we would call a traditional PLM or traditional CAD sense. So yeah, we're seeing increased demand now, but it took a lot of responsiveness from us, and there was lots of challenges along the way, as there were across all of education and all of industries, I think, this year.
Sounds very familiar. Dave Faulkner from Dassault Systems, thank you very much. That was very informative, and thank you for answering.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, everyone.
No problem. Okay, so we're now going to take a short break, and then after that we'll have Martin Davies from the IET Academy, who will be talking to us about the rapid shift towards online learning, motivation for learners as well, and how these can be implemented online. So join us shortly after the break. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Baxter. I'm the IET's Education Skills and Innovation Lead. Thanks everyone for joining today's conference on transforming higher education. Obviously, due to the implications of COVID, the whole world has had to rapidly change, with industry also having the extra challenge of achieving the government's target of net zero by 2050. Clearly, the current pandemic has gone some way to accelerate this change, with many workforces now needing to operate digitally. To this end, we've surveyed over 1,000 engineering employers to find out how prepared they are in reaching net zero and the skills they need to achieve this. So without further ado, Here's a quick snapshot of what they had to say. As we can see from the first slide, engineering is seen as the area in which most organisations report a skills gap, with over half saying so. This is a major problem as we move forward and rebuild the economy, as these skills gaps will need to be filled. Our survey also shows that 2/3 of employers think current staff will need more skills and knowledge than they currently possess. Only 1/4 of employees are adequately prepared. Here's a breakdown of the skills companies say they need to deliver their sustainability strategy. As you can see, innovation, management, and agility are by far the most important skills that companies think they will require. We can see from this slide that there is a split in how organisations want to recruit these skills, bearing in mind that some of these have selected more than one way. Although 38% of employers said they would hire new employees who already have these skills, 60% said they would upskill or retrain their existing workforce. Interestingly, 1 in 3 employees would recruit graduates or apprentices and teach the skills they require. Obviously, though, not every organisation will have the capacity to do this, highlighting the needs for industry and academia to work together to deliver training. Only 3% said they would do nothing, showing that employers are very keen to build up their skills for sustainability across the board. However, on the downside, there are many reasons why organisations are not able to address their skills gaps. Almost half are under pressure to reduce costs, which could be exacerbated by the current pandemic. 1 in 3 employers say that competition in the market for skills is the biggest barrier to addressing their skills gaps, which could be addressed if more of these were taught at degree or apprenticeship level. 1 in 3 also say that employers must be open-minded to new areas of growth and be able to change. And over 1/4 say that their business is not driving the reskilling agenda. This slide shows the perceptions of new entrants into the engineering profession. 57% of organisations think that university graduates do not understand the realities of working in industry. This is in contrast with 25% of technicians and 38% of apprentices. 43% of organisations agree that university graduates don't have the required skills for engineering, which is much greater than for technicians and apprentices. This slide shows where organisations are finding difficulties in recruiting. Almost half report that applicants lack the necessary technical skills, with 37% saying that applicants do not have sufficient work experience. 1/4 also say that applicants might not have enough soft skills, such as interpersonal skills and team working. And 1 in 5 applicants don't seem to be attracted by the conditions of the workplace or terms of business, including pay. When looking a bit more closely at the lack of technical skills, it's the lack of specialist skills or knowledge that seems to be the main problem. 1 in 3 of employers also said that solving complex problems or requiring a solution specific to a situation was also a skill that recruits generally lack. Many organisations are saying that they need more digital and digital specific skills, which is going to be even more important for the future. So I also mentioned that there are soft skills that employers say they lack. This includes team working, leadership and management skills in particular. These skills are important to every organisation, not just those in engineering. In some of the case studies you will have listened to today, we have and will see examples of how students can be taught these skills also while learning digitally. In order to tackle these issues, these are ways in which large and small employers are already engaging with the UK education system to be able to provide some more skills that employers are looking for. Understandably, this can be much easier for large companies who may already have the structures and resources available to them to engage with students and provide work experience opportunities and apprenticeship places. However, It's also really important that SMEs engage with students as they can show them how supply chains work and innovative ways of working. It also may encourage people to start their own businesses and develop entrepreneurship skills. Many organisations we surveyed identified key priorities for the UK education system as seen here. These are ways in which our respondents suggested would be the best way forward to ensure that students gain the skills they'll need for the future. More opportunities for work experience is the most favoured option, with 60% of employers saying so. Almost half of respondents suggest there should be more involvement of industry in the education system, with 45% saying there should be key targets for basic skills. 40% also said that project management experience would be really useful, and this can be delivered through coursework or managing a specific task. 38% of employers have said there should be wider provision of vocational courses, and the same number said that careers advice should be improved. So to finish up, what can we do as a profession to improve engineering skills? Well, we recommend that industry should work closely with academia to provide the practical and technical skills that individuals will need for the future. It might be that universities need to refocus to prepare students for anticipated growth areas such as digital and sustainability. Government should also ensure university funding is protected for these areas. We also need to work together to help build up the skills lost due to COVID, and also need to educate potential students about the value of studying engineering and different entry points into the profession. Lastly, just to mention that the IET is focusing on two main growth areas over the coming years: sustainable planets and digital futures. We'd be delighted if you can get involved if you can, so please do get in touch. Thank you so much for listening, and do let me know if you have any further questions or want further information on this.
Our lecture today comes from Martin Davies of the IET Academy, who will discuss the rapid shift towards online learning, motivation for learners, and how group learning can be implemented online. Please remember to ask your questions on Slido using the hashtag IET Digital Skills and vote your favourite questions up. I'll be asking several of them directly to Martin at the end of this presentation. Thank you, and over to Martin.
Hello, everybody. In this session, we'll cover a number of things. So we'll cover how to ensure that your digital content for learning is relevant to your employees, how to measure learner success in digital learning, and how implementing group learner activities through a range of digital technologies can really help in the delivery of your learning program. So, why am I here to present this to you? Well, I've worked in the e-learning industry for over 10 years. I'm currently head of digital learning at the IET, and I look after our online learning portal, the IET Academy. Previous to that, I was e-learning director at Wiley, where I developed a number of academic e-learning programs for international membership organizations, ranging from the American Cancer Society through to the Royal Marsden Manual of clinical procedures based out of London. So, just to give you a brief background of what we've been doing here at the IET in terms of digital learning. The IET Academy was born in 2015 through a range of research that we carried out looking at the market. The Board of Trustees gave us funding in early 2016. We then launched 18 months later in June 2018. And along the way, we've had to integrate with our single sign-on system, our finance system, and our CRM system. We've also developed an e-commerce site for individual purchases, which allows our members to go in and purchase e-learning courses. Today, we have 47 courses live. We've engaged with over 4,000 learners, and 60,000 hours of learning has been carried out. As you can imagine, it's been a complex project. It's caused lots of headaches, but one that we're very proud of. So, in terms of the shift to digital learning, pre-COVID days, digital learning was buoyant in the market, 24% compound annual growth rate. Since COVID and since lockdowns around the world have happened, the market has been moving forward rapidly. We're now seeing strong global annual growth rates in e-learning, particularly around usage. We're seeing better available learning technologies available for implementation, but also better learning technologies for individual learners to use. Also, development costs for digital learning have been reducing massively, actually. A few years ago, you'd be spending a few £100,000 in creating a single course. But now costs have come down massively. So we can all start to think about how we can implement digital learning in our day-to-day lives. But also we need to look at workplace development. Workplace tools have been developed that we use every single day. Cost control is an important thing. We don't want to be sending, when we can, people to a hotel for 4 days to have a training course, but rather spend the money more wisely, reduce costs on training spend, and actually use digital learning technologies. And we obviously can't ignore the fact that there's a younger generation now in the workplace, and that generation are used to using digital tools in both their personal and work life. And so the adoption of e-learning technology for those is an easy thing to do. Obviously, we can't ignore the COVID effect right now. We're all working remotely. We've been adopting digital communication technologies that we never thought we would, in a way that we never thought we would. Who'd really heard of Zoom back in March? Who was using Zoom back in? Now we're all using these again in our professional and personal lives. Also, during this time of COVID, we're hearing that employee retention, where possible, is really important. And one of the ways to retain employees is through learning and education. Also, onboarding of new employees. We've onboarded quite a few new employees here at the IET over the past 8 months, and we've been using digital learning techniques and digital technologies to onboard those employees. But I guess right now, more importantly, we need to use digital learning to support those facing redundancy, to give them new skills so that they can go out in the market and find themselves new roles. On the flip side, however, budgets are tight. Training budgets have been cut, and that's across the board. And we know that employee engagement is difficult as we are all working remotely. And working in teams, learning in teams, is not as easy as being together in an office. What's online training looking like in 2020? I think one of the most important things is ensuring your content is relevant. Remembering that one size doesn't fit all. So one training course will not fit one group of learners to the next. So what we need to ensure is that our content is popular, so we can change that content to be relevant to different people. And as far as we can, we need to personalize that content to ensure that your learners know that the content is relevant for them. We also need to make sure that the benefits are obvious to the learners. Why am I studying this course? What benefit will it give me? And I think a great thing to really consider is to ensure that your content is up to date. If your content isn't up to date, your engagement levels will drop. During this time that we're all working from home, we all seem to be sitting at our desks more, sitting at our kitchen tables more, working away, using our computers. Perhaps one might think that actually, if you assign some learning to somebody, they'll complete it straight away. That's actually not true. You still need to give your learners time to complete their online training. Also, celebrate success. Celebrate the success that the fact that people are A, engaging with the learning, and B, completing the learning. And either you do that through gamification, which we'll come on to a little bit later, but just a personalized certificate, just to say that thank you for completing the training, here's your certificate to prove it. Also, we're all sat away from our colleagues, working remotely. Facilitate group learning. Ensure that people are learning together, either using your learning management system or using blended communication tools such as Zoom, Teams, etc. One of the things that we've seen absolutely over the past few months is mobile learning. Mobile learning is increasing. People are using their mobile devices to learn on. We've seen a massive increase for the IET Academy in the use of our mobile application. So as well as ensuring that your learning management system is mobile optimized for the web, but also that it comes with its own mobile app so that learning is easy to access. So if you are going to be producing mobile friendly content, ensure that it really is mobile friendly. Ensure that there's not too much text on the screen, not too much video, so it's eating up lots of bandwidth. Ensure that the activities are short. Our activities last no longer than 4 to 5 minutes, so we can actually have that short, sharp engagement using the mobile device. And also ensure that you have appropriate formative and summative assessments, i.e. so that you can actually access those assessments on a smaller screen than you would on a laptop or a desktop. Also, with mobile learning, do you have to integrate with in-house technology? We've tried to avoid that as far as we can in terms of our mobile application, but perhaps that's something you'll need to consider. So, how do you build your framework for digital learning? Well, first of all, who is your internal or external market? Who will your learners be? And how will they be accessing their learning? Do they have specific issues? Will your learning be for beginners at the company, so initial training and development? Will it be those who are looking to enhance their career within your organization? Or will it be your sales and marketing colleagues who are looking for product knowledge? Also think about, is there a recognized body of knowledge for your institution, for your market? If so, use that to base your learning on. Is formal certification or qualification important? If so, can you deliver this alone, or who will you need to partner with? We partner with City and Guilds and EAL to deliver our qualifications. Are there any hands-on learning needs, and how will these be delivered? Not everything can be delivered using just digital learning techniques alone. So also choose the right e-learning content. Who's going to author this e-learning content for you? Do you have internal product specialists? Are you going to be using industry experts? Or are you going to be using trainers who've traditionally delivered face-to-face courses for you? Any of these people that you choose, author education is absolutely key. These may be the right people to write the right course, but have they written for the digital space before? So all of our authors work with our instructional design team to plan the learning before they even start writing. We break learning opportunities down into very small bite-sized chunks and build them back up again. We also walk through the templates that we'll be using to publish the content so that the authors know what they can do, the limitations of those templates before, again, they start writing. And everything needs to be driven by learning outcomes. That's the most important takeaway here. So you also need, for your own point of view, to develop courses that show engagement with learners, but also that shows the return on your investment. We always talk about supporting and extending learning with a range of courses, not just one-offs. So How can you take course A, which will move you on to course B, which will move you on to course C? We also have to think about the changing workplace and retaining our employees through the use of learning. Are you moving into new industry segments? What kind of learning do your current employees need to help you do that? What new technologies are you employing within your workplace? And what new skills do your employees need to develop? Also, what are the new skills requirements just generally as we're working in a different way now than we were just 10 months ago? What are the new skills that your teams need, and how can we help support them with learning? We also need to think about learner engagement. It's not worth producing the best courses in the world unless your learners are engaging. So what we found and what the market's finding is that bite-sized micro-learning opportunities are built up into a more detailed course are the things that people engage with. Use of video and enhanced video leading to animation, such as Beyond, again, is something that learners readily engage with. But make sure that your videos are no more than 1 minute to 90 seconds long at a time. Choose the right voiceover for your learners. Learners engage with their ears as well as with their head. They listen to people and they need to engage with that voice. Is that voice right for your learner? Ensure also that your learning designers or your editors are absolutely up to date with authoring technology. It's changing rapidly, and you need to deliver up-to-date learning opportunities for your learners. And then gamification. Of course, gamify your content, but ensure that the gamification you're employing is relevant to your employees or your market. And also ensure that the gamification is meaningful to your learners. Ensure that they understand why they're getting badges or points, or you have to really let them know why they're receiving these things. Also, we need to measure learner success. An investment again. Obviously, completion is the main one. Have they completed the course that they've been assigned? Yes, that is the main we need to focus on. Please give your learners plenty of time to complete that learning. Monitor their learning using dashboards within your learning system, but please ensure that your learning management system has those dashboards. Really, really important. We use our learning management system to nudge learners to completion. We email them from within the learning management system on a regular basis to ensure that they're progressing, that they're not stuck, and that they're moving towards completion. Reward and celebrate your learners so they receive a certificate of completion, but why not a follow-up email from you saying congratulations on completing the course? And as I mentioned earlier, ensure that there's a place for them to go once they've completed the course. Where do I go next in my learning? So extend and develop the learners through a suite of courses. And I think importantly here, allow in-course feedback. So let your learners feedback on the courses that they've just taken. And then you can go back and redevelop the content, listening to what the learners have said. Also, ensure that your learners feel supported. Further guidance on the learning management system, further guidance on the course content, give them walkthrough videos to actually show them what's expected of them, but also think about different learning styles and different learning techniques. Some of your learners may need more help with different delivery mechanisms for content, whether that be further reading scripts, whether that be larger fonts, those kind of things you need to think about as you're delivering your content out. Next, really think about group learning. We're all working at home. We're not with our colleagues anymore. We're not working in groups as we used to. One of the great things about digital learning is the creation of classrooms within the learning management system itself. But ensure that the classrooms you create are meaningful. Are there only going to be peers in that classroom? Are they going to be in the same time zone? They should be. And I would really encourage that the facilitators that you place into those classrooms are not direct managers for that group. If what we found is that if direct managers for that group are the facilitator, the questions, the discussion is a bit more muted than otherwise. Also, allow your learners to upload their own content into the classroom. Here's a great case study I found. This is the experience we had when we did X. And that, again, creates discussion, creates a better learning experience. But also consider live interaction. So again, we're not with each other as we used to be. We're not in a learning environment that we're used to around a table or in a room with 30 other people. You don't need to use your learning management system to do this. Use digital communication tools such as Zoom. But if you are going to create live sessions, ensure that you create multiple live sessions so that everybody can feel included and everybody can access at least one live session. And to make it more interesting, as you would a face-to-face event, invite guest speakers. They may be from your own organization or they may be from outside. But again, that creates discussion and questions and answers. And if you're creating larger classrooms, ensure that you use breakout rooms as well, so that smaller groups of people have the chance to discuss things before coming back into the main group to create and generate more discussion. Also, give plenty of notice for the live interaction sessions on their calendars. Do this from within your learning management system, or you can do it just using email. Also, if you've got specific activities that need completing within the e-learning program, ensure that they're timetabled from the beginning. This is particularly true for assessments. Work towards that end assessment date. And then monitor the success of the learning. Did it work? Did it not work? What worked? Should it go more blended? Should I have more live sessions? Did the blend not really work with that group of people? How will I change that up? Were the classroom sizes right? Should we have smaller ones, bigger ones? But gain feedback from your learners and create case studies that can be shown internally to other learners to show them what a success it was, what the challenges were around the learning opportunity. So, back to online learning in 2020. I think we're all still learning about how to adapt our e-learning initiatives for the new normal. I think we're getting there. I think everybody's doing some fantastic work, but we are all still learning. And also, not everything we will do will work. Try things out. Don't be afraid to fail. I think this is a great time to actually have some failures around learning opportunities to ensure that we don't do that again as we move forward. Subscribe to the digital learning news feeds. They're really quite good at the moment. There's some really great tips and hints for large scale and small scale digital learning programs out there at the moment. Also, keep a constant eye out for new learning technologies. They're coming thick and fast right now. Some are good, some are bad, but some you could quite readily implement into your organization. But also ensure that your delivery mirrors the market trends. So you may be looking at the new technologies, the new ways of learning, but rest assured, I'm sure your employees within your organizations are doing the same and their expectations will be high. But finally, I'd just like to say, keep going. I think everybody's doing a great job in the digital learning marketplace at the moment. And I think we just need to carry on and keep doing what we're doing.
Thank you, Martin. Very, very interesting and really great to see the IET being front and center of this initiative and providing online digital learning. So lots of questions for you here. So let's kick off. So how have you onboarded people digitally and how is this successful?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Actually, we onboarded a new member of the IET Academy team back in July, actually. So it was an interesting one. It was a brand new role. So digital executive working across the content team and the sales team. So we knew it wasn't going to be easy. It was, as I said, it was a brand new role as well as a brand new person coming into the IET. But what we ensured that we delivered a structured onboarding. We used Zoom, the first meeting we organise, usually at the IET, the first meeting is with HR, 9 o'clock first day, but we threw that out, and the first meeting was with the whole team, because the person who received the role had only met a couple of us. So what we did, we organised a Zoom call with my team, and we introduced that person to the rest of the team through Zoom. And then we followed a very structured induction over the next few weeks using Zoom. What we did, we asked that person who joined us to make her own appointments with the list of nominated people that we had. So she was making those meetings. We weren't making those meetings on her behalf. So she was providing introductions. When we fed back with her after the initial 6-week review period, one of the things that she said that she really valued was we assigned her a digital buddy, if you like. And that digital buddy was just outside of our team, but they checked in regularly together. They talked about the IET, they talked about her role, they talked about how she felt she was fitting in. And I think that was important for her because she could open up to somebody outside the IET, outside of our team rather, within the IET. And luckily, we were in July at that point, and they actually met. They got to meet face to face. I think about 4 weeks after she joined, they met for a socially distanced coffee in Stevenage. And really, she felt that that was really beneficial as well. I know we couldn't do that today, but really, I think it was all about ensuring that she felt supported within the whole team to start off with, but then offered her a very structured induction so that she could feel her own way into the team and into the IT. She's still with us, so I think that could have been a success, but obviously, you know, we'll see as time moves on.
Okay, thanks. And also, how do you celebrate success then in this new sort of digital world?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I mean, obviously, there's no more pats on the back for anybody for the foreseeable. But what I would suggest is that success should be individualized, should be personalized. And I think, you know, it's all great receiving your certificate of completion once you've done your course in X, but actually to get an email or a phone call or a Zoom call from your manager or from somebody in the L&D team to congratulate you on completing your learning, I think that's really important. Probably more practical if your line manager actually says congratulations, well done. And I think really that personalization of celebration of success is really important, rather than just, oh, you completed the course, let's move on. So really, I think that personalized element is really important, either from your manager or from somebody else within the team.
Okay, thank you. Got a question as well about people in different sort of age ranges. So there's a sort of older group who have not grown up with you know, some of the digital tools. How can you help that group get online and start learning things in this digital world?
I would say just get online and try. One of our biggest corporate customers has a wide age range of employees. It's basically the electrical contractors and the electricians that they employ. And they were worried about some of the older workforce actually engaging with the digital learning, but we've seen no problem with it. Good digital learning should be easy to access, easy to use, and support all learning styles. But what I would say is try some of the free stuff out there. Go onto the FutureLearn website. FutureLearn is funded by the Open University. There are loads of free digital courses out there for beginners through to intermediates. So really, I'd just go out there and just try some stuff. And I think you'll find that you can readily engage with some really great content that's already out there.
Okay, thanks. And then a broader question, what sorts of things can you teach in this way?
You can, transfer of knowledge, obviously, is the major one that you can deliver. But you can upskill people, again, with knowledge, with content. Obviously, practical skills is difficult. There are packages out there that allow you to manipulate objects using virtual reality. That's expensive and it's difficult technology to employ. But I think what's really great is transfer of knowledge and upskilling around soft skills in particular. I think that's something fantastic you can deliver using this kind of technology.
Okay, I'll ask my own question here, Martin, a bit of a trickier one. I mean, what sort of things can you not teach using
I think So we publish a course on installation of electric vehicle charging equipment. We publish the theory part of it, we publish the transfer of knowledge part of it, and the protocols around installation of EV charging equipment. But obviously, we can't deliver how to actually physically install the EV charging equipment itself. So I think really where there are highly practical elements, at this point in time, digital learning can support that, but it still can't deliver those practical elements that trades would need to do their job.
Okay, thanks. And in terms of getting the workplace to use this, so how can you ensure that your workplace is following these guidelines? And if they're not, what can people do?
Sure. I mean, I think one of the things is that you need to get engagement. You need to let people know why they're doing the learning, why they need to do the learning. So if on a Monday morning you get an email going, you've been enrolled in this training course, and you don't have a clue why you've been enrolled in the training course. So we publish courses around the wiring regulations, for instance. So what we did with some of our clients, we encouraged them to actually ensure that the people who would be training knew why. So there was a new edition of the wiring regs coming out. They need to be made up to date with that new edition so they could do their job properly. And once people know why they're doing the learning, you'll find that engagement is there, but also regular check-ins. And if you have a good platform to deliver online learning, you can actually see progression through the learning, who's doing the learning, who's started, who hasn't, and just give those nudges. And those nudges can be automated within the platform, or you can actually do it yourself by sending an email to your team saying, come on guys, we need to finish this in 6 weeks time, let's get going. But really encouraging people through the learning is a really important thing with digital learning.
Okay, and how long does it take to set it up?
It really depends. I mean, course content creation is the thing that takes the time. A lot of our authors have day jobs as well as writing content for us, obviously. So 6 to 9 months for content creation, and we can actually get content out within 6 weeks. And then our courses range from 5 hours up to 25 hours. And then onboarding is immediate. Basically, our corporate customer will send us a spreadsheet with all of the learners on it. We then feed that spreadsheet into our learning management system. Bang, within 5 minutes, people can start their learning.
Okay. And then how often should you refresh the material? It's another question.
Yeah, and that's a really good question, actually. We've all been to that very stale online learning over the years. We ask our content partners, our authors, to look at their content every 6 months to look whether or not it needs refreshing, or whether or not there are changes in the law, for instance, that need updating. But also for us, we like to invest in new content packages as well. And we refresh our learning with new learning opportunities, new learning methods, and we do that on a regular basis too. Okay.
And then another question here around the ratio between course time and preparation time. What do you think that ratio should be?
If you're thinking about the learner, I think basically the great thing about online learning is that you can delve in straight away. We don't tend to ask for prerequisites around our learning. Obviously, if you are a qualified electrician, you need to be a qualified electrician before you do a qualified electrician's course, obviously. But for us, we like to actually say, start your learning straight away. There's no pre-prep time. But preparation of the content itself, as I said, can take often between 6 and 9 months before it even starts to be developed into online learning.
Okay, thank you. Now, another one here around the partners. What sort of partners do you look for to accredit this information? So accreditation.
So basically what we offer is we offer IET continuing professional development hours around our content. Our content is developed in a rigorous fashion. It's blind peer reviewed, both at proposal stage and at content delivery stage. So all of our content is reviewed before it even gets onto the platform. That's really important for us to ensure quality. The partners that we look for, academic institutions, training providers, but also experts in the field. So if you're a leading expert, we really want to work with you so that we can deliver that kind of content that's important to our customers and our members.
Okay. Another one here around sort of work-life balance or learning in and out of work. So it's an interesting one, given all the blurring that is going on between work and home life. So should we allow learning in work time, or should we make sure learning is done outside of work time?
Learning should be done in work time. Absolutely. We really see more engagement when people are learning at work. And on a traditional training course, you usually do that in your own work time as well. So you don't take 2 days holiday to go off to a training course. So absolutely, I would encourage people and managers to encourage learning is undertaking during work time.
Okay. And how can we monitor how long people are spending working? Another question.
Sure. Basically, we use our learning management system to monitor how long people are doing the learning for. So we specify that on average, a course would take 10 hours, 12 hours, 15 hours, but obviously people learn at their own pace. So basically, we use our learning management system to monitor that. And if we see that people are taking too long or longer than expected to complete a course, we would encourage an intervention from that person's supervisor manager to actually see why it's taking them so long.
Okay, and just a couple more questions. So with group learning, how do you encourage both men and women to contribute equally?
That's a really great question, actually. And what we find is that basically women and men comment evenly on a learning platform, because basically their voice is allowed any time of the day or night. They can input their question, they can input their answer any time of the day at night. So actually the interaction between learners really is better than I think than it would be in a classroom environment.
Okay, and just final question as well. Have you seen an uptake in the use of the platform then since during the pandemic?
We have, absolutely, particularly from individuals. So we've really seen real engagement from individuals coming to the platform and buying our courses, basically across the board, which has been fantastic. So yeah, we absolutely have. And the most interesting thing is that the use of mobile learning, the use of our mobile application has skyrocketed since the pandemic began.
Great. Thank you so much. Martin Davies from the IET Academy. Okay.
Thank you very much, Chris.
So we've had so many questions, so much engagement that we're actually running slightly behind schedule. So I think we've only got time for a very, very short intermission of a break. But next on is Lisa Perkins from BT, who will talk to us about how BT, the work between the academia and industry can help nurture the next generation of technologists and engineers. So very, very short intermission and then straight back to hear from Lisa. Thank you. Our final case study for this conference is here. It comes from Lisa Perkins of BT, who will discuss how work between academia and industry can help nurture the next generation of technologists and engineers. Please remember to ask your questions on Slido using the hashtag IET Digital Skills and vote up your favourite questions. I will be asking several of them directly to Lisa at the end of this presentation. Thank you, and over to Lisa.
So good morning. Thank you very much for the introduction. I'm delighted to be here today to talk about how BT nurtures the next generation of technologists. So first, though, I just thought, despite that fabulous introduction, just a little bit about the role that I have. So having spent 23 years in BT, having joined as a graduate, I've had a very varied career in operational areas, customer-facing units, and I'm now in applied research, which I consider to be the best area of BT, because I have this exciting role which is all about how we create this amazing innovation ecosystem from which we can feed fantastic research and innovations. And a big part of what we do is establishing a fantastic pipeline of talent and skills into this ecosystem, which is why we are so passionate about nurturing that next generation of technologists. Before I embark on explaining some of the things that we do as part of our enrichment programme, I thought it would be relevant to just put into context a bit what BT actually does, so that you can marry up what our nurturing programme is into the environment that we are looking to seed the talent and skills. So BT's purpose is incredibly clear. We connect for good. So we have a very well and long established history right back to 1837, thanks to Wheatstone and Cooke, who invented the electric telegraph and created the Electric Telegraph Company, which is the forefather of BT. And ever since then, we've developed different ways and means of connecting people, right up to today with our 5G and our fibre to the premise programmes. We're still on that mission in terms of connecting people for good. And with this recent situation that we are all faced with in terms of dealing with COVID-19, that has really brought to life how important it is for society to be connected, and as a consequence, how vital BT's role actually is in that. And I've been incredibly proud of the work that my colleagues have done right across the operational areas in making sure that those networks have stayed resilient and have kept people connected in very different ways and situations than we've seen previously. And so where we are now as an organisation is with this almost reinvigorated feel around what our purpose is and the fact that we are doing good for society through our connections. However, we don't just connect for good. We have huge ambitions to drive above the network. So whilst we're still working really hard on innovating how we connect people, how we enhance our networks, how we increase our coverage, how we up our speeds, we are pushing beyond that baseline of connectivity to, and with our research themes, which I hope you can see on this slide, we are looking at how do we secure and defend those networks effectively, because trust is something that our customers are finding absolutely vital in terms of the way that they proceed about their business. But also building on this trusted and secure network, how we are driving insight. So how do we use artificial intelligence? How do we connect up devices and bring home data such that ultimately we can help our customers to do things better? So it still resonates back to that connect for good, but it might be that we are giving them the insight from which they can make different decisions in terms of how they might operate their business or how they might transform the experience they deliver on to their customers. And so we have this layered view and these really important key areas of research and focus. And in the context of what we're talking about today, what's really vital is that we find and grow the right skills that will put these areas of research into the forefront of what we do. And I'm really pleased to say that we have world-leading researchers, and we work very closely with about 30 plus different universities in terms of that research programme, working and collaborating collaborating in specialist areas with specific universities to make sure that we are tapping into the best resources for those research areas. So, given that is what we do, what we're about, what our purpose is, I just thought I would touch on where are we, so where are we looking for these skills, looking for this talent, looking for these resources. And we have developed over time this global presence in terms of our research capability. We are homed and rooted very much at Dassault Park in Suffolk, but we have this global open collaboration environment with points of presence in the US, in Abu Dhabi, in India, in China, each one being co-located with the universities in the area. And so we are extending that footprint right across the globe, as I say, in terms of giving ourselves the best opportunity to find that leading research, those pioneering innovations, so that we can bring that back to create purposeful solutions for our customers. So I mentioned the fact that we are rooted at Dassault Park, and Dassault in Suffolk started life as as solely a BT facility, and I think it was in about just after the Second World War that we moved in, and since then it's been known as the Research Labs, BT Labs. Dassault Park is the name of the site and the campus. And what we have at Dassault is this really thriving ecosystem. So we not only have our research HQ, but we also have, in association with the Research HQ, some of the real key operational areas, such as the operations centre that runs the networks 24/7, our security teams and OpenReach and so on. And what's developed over time is this amazing set of facilities, such as our laboratories, our test facilities, and we're growing those all the time in a bid to make sure that we give ourselves the best opportunity to find that leading research. And as an environment for bringing in new skills and talent, it's really rich and really diverse, and presents as this fantastic learning and development opportunity for the skills that will come onto site. Because not only do we have probably the largest presence of BT at Dassault Park, we probably have the largest population of graduates and apprentices in co-located in one space. I think across BT, just to give you an example, we have several thousands of apprentices and graduates, and a big proportion of those are resident at Dassault. And I will talk in a little while about how we help develop the people that have come to Dassault. But before I do that, I'm going to talk through how we develop that pipeline so that ultimately we attract people into our ecosystem. Another really important aspect of Dassault is that it is no longer the sole BT is no longer the sole inhabitant of Dassault Park. So over time, we have developed the park into this really diverse innovation ecosystem. So we have just under 150 companies that are resident with us at the park, and they range in size. So we have big corporates, Ericsson's, Juniper's, Nokia's that are resident with us, but we also have this very diverse spectrum of companies right down to startup organisations, and we're very proud of the fact that we have developed this ecosystem that incorporates this variety, not only in terms of size and scale, but also in terms of the different types of technologies. So yes, we have a lot of network-based companies, but we also have artificial intelligence companies, data analytic companies, security, and so on and so forth. in congruence with the BT ambition and the areas that we are really interested in developing. And that's important because I'm going to talk to you a little while about that ecosystem and how that has a play in the nurturing of this next generation of technologists. And you'll see there that I'm also talking about that link to academia. So I mentioned briefly the fact that we're passionate about finding purposeful innovation, and I've mentioned the fact that we have this wide footprint and large numbers of universities that we work with. What we are in the process of doing is actually developing some of those relationships in a way that means that that academic learning can be brought to life in the context of a business environment, so that the students that are involved in those programs have real exposure to industry and business learning. Before I leave this slide, the other important dimension to this, and again relevant to that business learning for our next generation of technologists, is our customer collaboration activity. So we, in that purposeful innovation domain, are passionate about making sure we really understand what customers want, what their challenges are. And so we have some fantastic facilities on site with our global showcase and something we call our hothouse facility, which gives both of those facilities give us the capability to work really closely with customers to get under the skin of their challenges and to marry up for those customers the art of the possible in terms of the research that we're doing and the innovations that we're growing at the park. So hopefully you've got a sense from that in terms of the ecosystem that we operate in, particularly at Industrial Park. I wanted to just touch now on how we, as I say, feed that ecosystem with the right talent and skills. And it's a good question, isn't it? Well, what do employers want and what do we need in our future technologists? And I think we've all seen various articles around the fact that maybe graduates don't have the skills that businesses want. They aren't in a position to kind of rock and roll straight away. You can see some examples there. But we have distilled out, we think quite clearly, what we're looking for, which is against a base layer of fundamental science and technology, an appreciation of the so what, as it says on the slide. And what we mean by that is, what's the purpose? What's the so what? So you can, invent this amazing thing, you can stretch the physics in this certain way. What for? What's the purpose? How is it going to benefit somebody? And that lens is something that we passionately believe comes from that co-learning with a business in that kind of business context. And coupled with that, fundamental skill and appreciation of the so what, innate capabilities around curiosity. And I guess the curiosity lends itself very much with that. Well, what is the so what? But the ability to question and the ability to challenge is what we mean by that curiosity. And being adaptable. Things change all the time. Technology, I don't think, has ever moved as quickly as it does and has been doing. So not only do you adapt, how do you adapt to the changes in technology, but also the work environment, the changes in, kind of structure, ways of working, and so on and so forth. And finally, resilience. So what's very important in our innovation setup is that we go and we go again. It's important to fail, you learn from failure, but you have to have that resilience to be able to pick yourself up, dust yourself down and go again. So those are kind of a good description, I think, of what we are looking for in terms of the skills for our future technologists. And I think that sort of sets the scene in terms of our enrichment programme and how we're looking to grow those things. So we're going to talk a bit on this slide around purple people. So this is a theorem that Wayne Eckerson invented in 2010, but it's something that really resonates for us, so we also talk about it. What we've been conscious of over time is that we've been very good at developing engineers, scientists, technologists, purists in some respect, and we've also equally being successful in sourcing what we're calling on this side business people, but the finance side of the house, the HR development and side of the house. What we are and commercial side, what we're looking for as well to complement these skills are what we're calling these purple people, who can bridge the two. So what we're looking for, and the previous slide alluded to this in terms of the so what thing, how do you take the raw investigative work from what you're doing in terms of engineering and science, and how do you apply that commercial lens to it? And that's very important for us in terms of turning our organisation from one that is sort of a steward or operator scenario to one that is really pushing forward and executing on a strategy, and catalyst is a great word on this slide, but accelerating that and making it happen. And I think you need all types of those skills to kind of really make that happen. So again, that's just really a bit of background in terms of what we're looking to grow and find as we move forward. So what we've also identified is that when we look at children from as young as year 2 upwards, that everybody has science capital, or my team laugh at me when I call it science baggage. So what we mean by that is that actually everybody has a bag that they carry around that they're filling up with what they know about science. And for some people, it's not very full at all. And for others, it's, brimming over the top. And obviously we're hoping to develop and nurture people in a way that they fill up their bag. But the wheel on the right side of this diagram gives you a sense of what those things are that you can put in your bag, starting with, are you somebody that talks about science in everyday life? So do you have an environment that supports you to do that? So are you conversing all the time about science? Do you have family members that are working in a science environment, or are geared towards having those science conversations? Do you know people in science related schools? Are you participating in out of school activities? Are you reading science journals? Are you watching science programs? Do you know, and this one is really important, it's this knowledge of transferability of science skills. Do you know how what you learn from a science perspective really relates to jobs, careers? How are you going to apply that science? And that's important because that's a fundamental principle of our enrichment programme in terms of how we look to develop that next generation. And just to finish on this slide, one of the things that really we found quite alarming, and hence created this urgency around delivering these interventions to help with this situation, is that in 2014 there was a survey which came back to say that only 5% of the 11 to 15 year olds that they surveyed in England had high science capital, and unfortunately were, of the 5%, the vast majority were white male. And so we have taken that to heart as part of what we do to intervene with that, to try and reverse that, so that actually we have significantly more 11 to 15 year olds that do have high science capital, and that it's a diverse mixture of people. So finally, what are some of the things that we do? So there are 3 principles that are hopefully the pre-slides or my narrative prior to this has built up to, that we apply in terms of facing into this challenge of creating and stimulating this fantastic pipeline of skills and talent. So we are absolutely passionate about starting as young as we can. So typically we work with year 2 children and above at primary school. And the work that we do is all about exciting them. We want primary school children to come into STEM related activities and be excited. So we have computational thinking concepts. You can see some of the pictures there, crumble bots, CoSpace and Bebots and all the rest of it, and we develop these activities with the children in mind, but with a view that we want to excite them, but also bridge to that applicability of, well, why is it, yes, this is a fun activity and I'm enjoying this. How does this then transfer to what a possible job might be in the future? Just to try and seed really early on how exciting science and STEM subjects can be and how they can translate into an exciting career. So not only though are we working with the children to deliver these activities, but we are also working with teachers. So we are working with the NCCE, which is the National Compute Centre for Education. We are looking at supporting teachers and helping to teach them how to deliver their curriculum in computing. The second pillar is all about inspiration. So we're very attuned to the fact that we do see a big drop off in the kind of teenage years of the next, that next generation being inspired by STEM and science subjects. So we have a whole set of interventions pointed at this in terms of, again, making that link for the children in terms of what learning in the activities that we can work on with them, how that actually translates into the real world. And I talked about our customer showcase when I was explaining what we have at Dassault Park, and that's designed to bring to life for our customers the art of the possible for technology. But we also use it as one of the tools in this pillar to bring the children in and show them the art of the possible of technology in the context of what the people are that are working on those technologies, what they are doing, and creating that string again, that link, in terms of that transferability of pure science and what they're doing in their learning environment into that hands-on work experience scenario. So interventions in that space, as I say, we have showcase days where we take them around and wow them in terms of what technology is and how they can get involved, but also in terms of work experience activities. And we're not thwarted by what's happening with COVID-19. We're continuing to push to give children those opportunities to experience what that looks like. And then finally, the third pillar is around nurture. So how do we set up the right environment for those that have chosen science already and might be at that apprentice grad level? So again, internships, placements, getting a real understanding of what that business context looks like for the learning that they have or are embarking on. Tommy Flowers Network is a really key activity for us, which is where we bring together academia and business and industry around a specific challenge. So we've had seminars on health or transport or clean tech, where we are bringing together the brains from academia, but the industry and business leaders as well, to kind of set the challenge so that together we find those purposeful innovations and solutions. So I hope that gives you a flavour of some of the interventions that we develop as part of our enrichment programme and why we do what we do. This initiative is a single initiative that we've got, again, that is based and rooted in helping to create that business learning. If you remember, one of my previous slides was about people that are graduating from university but are not business ready. So we here in Suffolk have been fortunate enough to secure funding from the local enterprise partnership to work with the local university, University of Suffolk, to create what we are calling our Digitech Centre. And in exactly the same way as I've just described the other interventions in our schools enrichment programme, this is predicated on the ability to have the Institute on site with our 150 companies and BT to be able to deliver business relevant learning. So they will be in they'll be in co-location, but also in collaboration with each other, so that the ambition is that the students will be graduating into that business environment with having benefited from significant business experience. And the businesses benefit because they've been able to shape and influence the curriculum and the skills that are going to be required into the future for those businesses. So I think that hopefully gives you a sense of that enrichment programme, how we nurture the next generation, starting right from year 2 and above. I'd just like to really finish with, once we bring people into BT, how we go about nurturing them, right? So we are very clear that there isn't a one-size programme that fits absolutely everybody who comes through the door. And right from the get-go, we have degree apprentices, we have graduates, and we have postgraduates joining us. And what we look to do is develop on a case-by-case basis the right programme of development for those individuals to give them the best chance of flourishing. So that could be through rotations and secondments through the business. It could be by supporting further qualifications, supporting additional professional accreditation. And volunteering is a really important dimension that we've seen be really successful in terms of helping those new career joiners to actually embed themselves across the organisation and to create a network, and also to kind of give back. So it also benefits from that kind of core sort of satisfaction dimension as well. So that's probably enough from me. Just to finish, just in case you hadn't gathered, we really are passionate about how we nurture the next generation of technologists and find the right skills and the right talent to feed this flourishing ecosystem such that ultimately we can continue to connect for good. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Fascinating to hear all the things going on in BT, and I was particularly intrigued by the purple people concept as well. I think a shortage of those in industry as a whole, to be honest. So very interesting. So lots of questions for you here. Let's start with this one. So how much do you collaborate with academia?
I think a significant amount. So we have about between 30 and 40 relationships with universities, predominantly in the UK, but as I alluded to in the presentation, some of those globally as well. And what we tend to do is we marry up I gave a bit of a sense of the research areas that we're really particularly interested, you know, from networks, AI, cyber, and so on. And what we tend to do is work with the universities that we deem are kind of really leading in those kind of particular areas. So, for example, we work with Surrey around our wireless and 5G research and development, whereas, you know, kind of Bristol, for example, we work with them on our kind of AI, quantum capability and so on. So we kind of try and marry across the board, but it's about 30, 40 plus relationships. So I believe that's quite significant. It seems significant to me anyway.
Okay, all right, thanks. And the outcomes and conclusions from the research that you conduct, the ones with academia, is this open source, or is it for driving BT's internal future development?
Yeah, that's a great question. It does vary. But predominantly, obviously, we are embarking on those collaborations to drive our research in a particular direction, so that ultimately we find fantastic innovations from which BT can drive value. So in the vast majority of cases, I would say it's not open source, and it is absolutely for driving BT's internal future development. However, that's not always the case. And, you know, quite often we will do, you know, kind of collaborate on publications that become externally available.
Okay. What are some of the challenges you faced when adopting technologies that the rest of us can look out for?
So does that mean specifically now in this environment? I mean, because, you know, like with respect, or does that mean more generally, do we know?
Well, I suppose we're not sure, but I think you could maybe answer it in two different parts. One is, you know, in the sort of normal world, and maybe do a specific sort of COVID answer to that.
Okay, so generally, the ecosystem that we've got at Dassault and some of the facilities that we've got at Dassault mean that we believe we're kind of quite successful in that adoption. And one of the ways that we do a lot of that adoption of technologies is by trialing it and proving the concept and working with our customers in terms of, you know, starting with a kind of a low volume, low scale trial and increasing the coverage and maybe the complexity and so on and so forth over time. So we know that works successfully. That's been, you know, we now have Europe's largest integration and test facility on the back of doing that over the years, and we keep a model of everything that we test and launch, so that we've got that to refer back to. But the challenges in terms of setting some of that up just include, you know, kind of the, you know, initially probably that engagement piece in terms of convincing people as to why they might want to kind of test and trial with us. But that's why again we have this fantastic showcase on site, because what that does for customers is kind of bring to life those technologies for those customers so that it's meaningful and they can relate to it. And even if it's so the showcase is designed in different pods, so we have like a mini shop, a mini manufacturing line, a mini hospital, and we put this technology in to help customers see it in context, which is really beneficial for them in terms of their adoption. So I think actually that's probably answered it from the perspective of how do we help people to adopt technologies rather than BT itself. But I hope that kind of gives you a sense of that. I think in terms of the reason I mentioned COVID is because quite often we do get, you know, kind of what have the challenges been in, you know, with respect to this new kind of virtual environment that we kind of find ourselves in. And I mean, I'm predisposed to try to find silver linings in things, and I think there has been a silver lining in this scenario, which is it's accelerated the adoption of lots of technology at scale. So actually that's been a positive from our perspective in terms of, you know, the ability to integrate more immersive technology more ubiquitously.
Okay, and I mean, just sticking with the COVID theme then, how are you getting engagement with schools during COVID?
So we've had to pivot to the virtual environment. We have adopted, we've just finished a whole load of video creation. So we've got small scale bite-sized videos that we've kind of created across the kind of technology pieces. We've set up our virtual work experience program as well, so that people, you know, students can come and talk virtually to different areas across the business, and so on. So, you know, we're just pivoting, making the virtual environment work as effectively as we can. And we're also working with partners locally across the region. So we've got some really great partnerships. I think one of the other questions was about FE, but we do work with local schools and colleges to and in the construct of what they have set up, so that we can, you know, go in a socially distanced way as well.
Okay, and then the next question around customer needs and requirements. So for me, this is back to the purple people concept, so you can relate it to that. So do you teach students about customer needs and requirements?
So the very short answer is no, we don't teach it. So it's not a formal module, but what we do is we encourage them to think about it. So I think I kind of gave a sense of this applicability of the work that they do, and why it makes a difference in a kind of a business environment, and through that learning and through that experience of putting the research or the innovation or the activity that they're embarking on in the context of kind of business is designed to give that sense of, you know, kind of that purposeful innovation, and why we are creating what we're doing and what the customer needs and requirements look like. And that Digitech Centre initiative that we are embarking on with the University of Suffolk will absolutely have, I'm not so sure it'll have a core module per se, but the whole concept of that learning being in situ with business is to try and again encourage that understanding and experience of customer needs and requirements.
Okay, and Lisa, you talked a bit about science capital as well. So how do you measure the increase in science capital?
Oh, that's very hard to do, to be honest. So obviously that concept is really strong, and I think probably all resonates for all of us. We may well have mentally been thinking, well, you know, what's my bag look like and how full is it? Unfortunately, it is something we would love to be able to do, but obviously there are very strict rules on tracking children. So we can't actually you know, quantify it effectively. But just to put into context why we think it really does, the programme that we've got established works and does increase science capital, is that I talked about the apprentices that we have on site, of which there are vast numbers. About 80% of those apprentices have been through something in our education enrichment program, and they will very happily talk to me when they start at BT as to the reasons why they chose BT. And I'm very happy to say that in nearly all cases, as I say, 80%, it's because they've participated in something that we've done and they've been inspired through that. So we're very proud of that.
Okay, just in terms of the selection criteria then, so how do you choose students to join BT?
So that's actually quite a difficult question to answer, only because BT is so vast. So, you know, I can talk very specifically about the research area of kind of BT and what we do, but you know, there are some standard requirements that obviously we look for right across BT that are common, you know, and actually some of that is what I described in terms of that resilience, adaptability, curiosity, you know, kind of showing that flair. That's probably something that's common right across, you know, BT in terms of what we look for. But each department in BT, you know, it's kind of a several £100,000 people organisation, that the requirements will change obviously on a unit by unit basis. But in kind of research and technology, we look for those softer capabilities. We look for strong science and engineering type subjects, although we are greying that around the edges. So, you know, for instance, you know, we are looking at psychologists for our AI program, for instance, you know, kind of that's a graduation from that, you know, kind of deep sort of physics and maths capability that we would have looked for before. So it's that adaptability, that resourcefulness, and obviously there's a you know, kind of a well-documented process that you can research in terms of actually applying and the like.
Okay, there's another question around the split of men and women. So the question is, do you have an even split of men and women joining BT? I also, whilst answering that, do you want to talk a bit more about diversity as well at BT?
Yes, definitely. So this is a very kind of, we're laser focused on this as an area for us to do better. So I think historically our diversity has not been great. I mean, in the research, in applied research at BT, we actually have a lot of diversity in terms of it's very international, it's kind of quite, you know, it spans the age demographic, but it is I think about 24% female versus a dominant, you know, kind of male population. And actually that's quite a good statistic in terms of BT. In other areas it's far fewer. So it is something that we take very seriously, and is why as well in our enrichment program we have specific interventions, and why we start so early is actually that we recognize that girls particularly tend to lose interest in STEM subjects much earlier on. So we start at year 2 because we're trying to prevent that. We're trying to inspire all children, but especially girls, that you know, this is a career for them, and they will be, you know, they can make it something really exciting and beneficial. And so we're starting at that end of the pipeline to try and make sure that when it comes to recruiting, we have got a great pool from which we can select from. So I am pleased to say that our apprentice intake this year and last year for our apprentices into applied research were 50-50, and we work really hard to make sure that, you know, we look at all of those aspects, but there's still work to do, but we are working on it very much so.
Okay, and then just a couple more questions then. One around retention. So how many students stay on at BT as a worker after 5 years or so after finishing the course? What are your retention?
Oh, so I guess there's a time span on that that's kind of missing. So I am frequently giving out 25-year, 30-year, 40-year long service awards to people right across the organisation. So it is very common for people at BT to stay for the entire duration of their career. But what that question is probably asking is that still the case? You know, so our students that we're recruiting now and over the last sort of 5 to 10 years, are they staying on? I don't actually have the specific statistic on that. I think you know, if I was to kind of guess, it's probably not as it has been in the past. So we probably do get attrition more so now, because I think opportunities are just vast across the industry now. But what we do know that we offer at BT to help with that retention is we can offer such depth and diversity in terms of careers for people. So you can move around the organisation and have vastly different experiences. I mean, I've spent many years at BT now and had lots of different roles that have, you know, definitely helped keep me at BT, because it's been refreshed each time that I've changed the role.
And just final question, Lisa, a look into the future. How do you know what a future technologist will need or want?
Okay, so a future technologist is obviously an individual. So I'm not sure that we could ever say that we know. We know what we need from our future technologists as a business, which I've kind of alluded to already. But what we do know is that we can, as I said in the last slide, tailor to a degree kind of the opportunities that somebody coming into BT will be presented with in direct correlation with what their ambition might be.
Lisa Perkins from BT, thank you so much for joining us.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that comes to the end of our conference. So thank you very much to David, Martin and Lisa for such informative and well thought out examples of some of the work you're doing in the higher education space. And for some thoughts, ideas and examples of what we can use in higher education. These examples will help us transform society, engaging engineers with the necessary digital skills for our digital future. From Dassault systems to the IET Academy to BT, digital skills are being learned and employed in higher education. These are just some of the many examples that have been used throughout the country. If you have any case studies or that you would like the IET to know about, please do email sep@theiet.org and a member of the education and skills team will get back to you. So please also note that all the talks today and from yesterday are online on YouTube and can be played back. So feel free to share them and rewatch them with friends, family, colleagues who might be interested. So unfortunately, we've come to the end of our conference, Transforming Higher Education, Digital Skills for a Digital Future. I'm really pleased that we've had the opportunity to come together and see such fantastic examples of the work that's going on in this area. So with that, I'd like to thank again Helen, Freya, Luke, Mehmet, David, Martin and Lisa. My name is Chris Cartwright and it's been a pleasure to chair this conference. Stay safe and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your week.